Similar to inner joins, we can use outer joins between multiple tables. Let me show you. So here's the query that we wrote in the last tutorial. We're doing a left join between customers and orders tables. So when we execute this query, we get all the customers, whether they have an order or not. If they have an order, we see the order ID. Beautiful. Now, if you look at the orders table, you can see that some of our orders have a shipper ID. These are the orders that have been shipped. So now let's join the orders table with the shippers table to display the name of the shipper in the result. So back to our query. After this left join, let's write another join. Here I'm doing an inner join. So let's inner join the orders table with the shippers table. Join shippers. We call it SH. On what is the join condition? Well, O.shipper ID should be equal to sh.shipper ID. All right. So in this query, we have a left outer join and an inner join. Let's see what we get. All right. We only see 5 records, but we have more orders. So here we have the same problem we had before. Some of our orders don't have a shipper, and that is why they are not returned here. In other words, this join condition is not true for some of our orders. So back to the orders table. As an example, this first order doesn't have a shipper. Shipper ID is null, and that is why it's not returned in the query result. So to solve this problem, we should use a left join. We want to make sure that all orders are returned, whether they have a shipper or not. So back to the query, we need to replace this inner join with the left join. So let's execute the query and see what happens. Now we should have quite a few more orders. There you go. Now to make this example more interesting, I'm going to add the shipper name here. So back to our select clause, let's add a new column. So shipper.name. And we can give it an alias like shipper. Let's execute the query and here's the result. So we get all the customers, whether they have an order or not. And for those who do have an order, we get all the orders, whether they have a shipper or not. This is the power of outer joins. Now, in the last tutorial, you learned that you can get the same result with both a left join or a right join. You just have to swap the order of the tables. However, as a best practice, avoid using right joins because when you're joining multiple tables and you have left and right and inner join, things get really complex. Someone else reading your code will have difficulty visualizing how you're joining these tables. As an example, if you had a right join here and then a left join after, it would be harder to visualize how these tables are getting joined. So as a best practice, avoid right joins and use left joins instead. And here's your exercise for this tutorial. I want you to write a query that produces this result. So here we have these columns: order date, order ID, the first name of the customer, the shipper, and we can see that some of our orders are not shipped yet. So here we have null. And finally, the status. So go ahead, spend 2 to 3 minutes on this exercise. When you're done, come back, continue watching. All right, let's select everything from the orders table. Now we should join this with customers. On O.customer ID should be equal to C.customer ID. Here I'm using an inner join because every order does have a customer. So this condition is always valid. It doesn't matter if we use a left join or an inner join here, okay? Now, before going any further, let's pick our columns. So from the orders table, I want to pick order ID, followed by order date, and then customer.first name, which we can optionally rename to customer. All right. Next, we need to select the shipper. So we join the result with the shippers table on order.shipper ID equal to shipper.shipper ID. However, if we use an inner join here, because some of our orders don't have a shipper, we're only going to see the orders that have been shipped. Let me show you. So for clarity, I'm going to add the shipper's name here. So shipper.name as shipper. Let's execute the query. There you go. We only see the orders that have been shipped, but we want to see all the orders, right? So we need to change the second join to a left join. So all orders are returned whether they have a shipper or not. Let's execute the query one more time. There you go. Now we see all the orders from number 1 to number 10. Beautiful. Finally, we need to add the status column here. So we need to do another join here. Join with order statuses, which we abbreviate as OS, on o.status equal to os.order status ID. You can see that I have designed this database such that sometimes our column names are exactly identical, but in other cases, they don't match. So in the order table, we call this column status as opposed to order status ID. And this is deliberate because a lot of real databases are like that. All right, now let's add the status name here. So order status.name as status. Execute the query. And we can see all the orders here. For each order, we have the date, the customer, the shipper, and the status.